And Liverpool's king to the court are champions of Europe once again.
We're almost at the 15-year anniversary of. Last week we talked about the Cardiff final, and I said at the beginning, I said, is this possibly the greatest FA Cup final of all time? And honestly, I still can't think of one that was better in terms of just complete unpredictability, what happened. But if anyone can show me a better European Cup final than what they say, the miracle of Istanbul, I'm all ears. But start off with you, Stewie. 2005. First of all, we're gonna pick a few key moments leading up to the final, obviously, and go through the game. But can you remember where you watched the game? Did you watch it at a pub? Was it a house party? Did you manage to get over to Liverpool? Where were you for the game?
I was, as I said last week, I watched the FA Cup final in a pub in Balbriggan called the Harvest. So for the Champions League, I was approximately 500 metres down the road in another pub.
He's versatile, I'll give him that.
Called Ennis's.
You mean the Bruin?
Yeah, was it the Bruin? It was probably the Bruin in 2005. Yeah, right. It might have been. There was a kind of change. I can see Jonathan's eyes glaze over there as we regale him with tales of yore about Balbriggan.
Wait till you hear my one. That's all I'll tell you, folks.
But probably. Do you want me to call it the Bruins? Let's call it.
The Bruins just sounds fancier. That's what I'm going for.
There was absolutely nothing fancy about the Bruins.
Stewie Curran wasn't in a fancy place.
Yeah, let's go with the Bruins. Yeah, I was at a pub called the Bruins. That's where I watched it. I'd actually missed the first goal, and I thought it was a practical joke when I got a text. I arrived about 40 seconds after Maldini had scored. So I was waiting on one of my friends. He'd been away travelling for the year in Australia, and he had come back literally that morning. So he was all excited. He's a Crystal Palace fan, but
right.
You know what it's like when you're living in Australia trying to watch football live. It's tough. So he was really excited about this, being able to go out and watch the European Cup final live at a normal hour with mates that he hadn't seen in a year. So I was waiting for him to call to the house. So he's late for everything. So we were slightly late, and I'd say we were probably 50 foot from the door of the pub when I got a text from a United fan. He was a friend of mine. And it just said 1-0 down. And of course, I laughed it off, said it to my other mate. Yeah, Dave's after texting, says we're 1-0 down. He's like, yeah, he's definitely winding you up. But to my horror, as I walked into the Bruins and turned to my right, there it was on the big screen, the replay of Maldini bouncing that volley in past Dudek. And immediately I just thought this is bad, and I thought it was going to be a disaster. And as events would unfold in the next 43 minutes, that disaster got bigger and bigger. And,
yeah. and Anto, I've always been slightly jealous of your story because you were actually in Liverpool, weren't you?
I was. I was a student in the University of Wolverhampton at the time. I was 20 years old. I'm very grateful for being that age to see Liverpool win the European Cup, because we missed, we would all be too young to have been there for the first wave of Liverpool European dominance. But being sort of 20, old enough to go to the pubs and really enjoy it and savour it and appreciate it, I went to Liverpool. I had no money. I was absolutely on the bones of my arse. I was a student. I had no money. Me and another guy from Dublin we had to hide in the toilet on a train from Birmingham to Liverpool, bunked it, and got through. The money we had was going to go on drink. And then we stayed. He had a friend in Liverpool, and he gave us a floor. We slept on the floor, and I'll always remember getting out at Lime Street, and you could just hear the singing, the whole city. Like Lime Street, you lads will all know that it's not like it's bang in the middle of. It's not surrounded by pubs or thoroughfare or anything like that. But you could hear the singing from the streets. I think we landed around 4:30, and just the excitement of it, because Europe, we've been lucky. We are of a lucky generation that we've seen Liverpool in 4 Champions League finals, and there's levels, like there's big games, and then there's a European Cup final. It just doesn't get any bigger, and the excitement of it was unbelievable. I watched it in a pub called Rubber Soul. Again, I'm sure you gents probably know it, on Matthew Street. Had to leave at half time because a dreadful row broke out and the whole place was evacuated. But we'll get to that later. But that was where I watched it. All
right. Well, Stewie went to a not so glamorous location in Balbriggan, and Anto was a broke student. So, Jonathan, can you up those revelations, those shocking revelations? Where were you and what were you doing?
Well, it's the most shocking confession of my life. It was the night of my Leaving Cert graduation, and I missed the most of 90 minutes. I was in mass at the time, at our school mass.
Oh
wow!
Whoa.
So,
and this is these are the days before you can just slyly kind of whip out your smartphone.
Absolutely.
And check
So we had a kind of plan. Do you remember the old kind of portable TV, little wind-up little devices that you used to have? They were like the size of 2 phones. We were like, all week we knew this was coming, and we knew this was coming for a while, but there was just no way of getting out of it. There was no way of trying to move the time. By God, we tried. But so we came up with the conclusion that we'd get one of the lads to have that and have it kind of discreetly down by the side of his leg, so he'd be able to keep us updated. It didn't work. So masses started, we get the whispers coming through, and yeah, I repeat, this is before smartphones and stuff like that. It wasn't as easy where you could just, like, now you'd manage it, you'd whip out your player or whatever station it's on, and you'd be able to get a live feed of it. Back then there was none of that, so we got the whisper straight away. I think mass had just started, and then you just hear this groan coming from the corner
from the priest.
parents and everyone, like, it was just horrible. And then when the second goal came in, one of the guys comes tearing in saying it's 1-1. In fact, it was 2-0 down, so that was even worse, because you had the false hope of we've actually equalised this. And the mass just went on and on and on, and it was just torturous. And then the speeches started afterwards, and it was like, it's 3-1, it's 3-2, it's 3-3, and at this stage we'd lost all shame, and we were just screaming around the place. It was the quickest tear down to town, and we managed to get in and watch all extra time and go completely crazy. And it turned out to be a great night, because we just went absolutely nuts. And
oh God!
God knows how many times you never was played.
I gotta say, the only way I'd be in a church when Liverpool are playing a European Cup final is if it was my funeral. There's no way I would be sitting in a church, even if it was a wedding. I think I would just have to say, "Hey, listen, maybe we just should take a 6-month break just to make sure that there's no cold feet. Let's just reevaluate everything, and then if Liverpool lose the semi-finals, go, you know what? Actually, I do love you. Let's the date you picked was fine."
I'll be honest. I thought about going up to the church at half time and lighting a candle. Just to get a bit of divine.
You would have seen me burying myself at that stage.
Is that a serious admission there, Stu? Do you genuinely think that?
No, I didn't. I sat slumped in Deli Burger across the road and looked out the window eating a burger as it pissed today. There's no way I can walk back over there.
It's amazing how many stories Stewie has that seem to involve the sentence slumped. I was slumped. So listen, but let's not spoil it all. Let's just go back to 2004-05. Houlier's kind of system had kind of run dry at that stage. You know, he had a very kind of particular way of playing, and it basically by the end of 2004 season, Liverpool were very lucky. I mean, this is a pre kind of money Man City. Spurs hadn't really got their act together, so Liverpool kind of got top 4 by default. And I remember when Houllier left, I don't think anybody thought that Houllier should get another year. But I remember in the same way when Klopp came, I thought it was a really incredible appointment. I couldn't believe, because he came with this huge reputation from La Liga. Jonathan, what were you thinking when you heard that Rafa Benitez was the new Liverpool manager?
I was completely delighted. That Spanish team I pretty much had a big love affair with them. Really, they played some glorious football.
Twice against Liverpool, if you remember.
Absolutely batterers. I remember even before those Valencia games, in my ignorance at the time, I was like, "Oh, it's Valencia. We're going to take these." I've never even heard of them that much. And then you watch them play, and then that they kind of got me hooked in on it. And then I don't think, Benitez kind of gets mocked in certain aspects of life, but and his Liverpool portion of his career, I think, it probably gets overwhelmed a little bit. Probably his biggest achievements was what he did with Valencia. It was just incredible, really, and you're so excited by the style of football, because you're right in saying it had gone so stale and so dead under Houllier, and even like Houlier's, I think his ego got a little bit like, who else has a press conference to announce their own sacking? It's just incredible. And it's just completely unheard of. And then, we'd gone so stale. We were kind of slow dab English football at the time when English football was going in a different direction. And yeah, it was one of the reasons why you were so excited. I think that's the biggest thing that kind of Rafa did short term, was he got rid of that kind of old school British values in it, in terms of, your likes of your Heskys, Danny Murphys, etc., and he brought he brought your Alonso's, Luis Garcia's, little bits of flair and stuff like that. And obviously the two biggest things really is what he did with Carragher and what he did with Gerrard. He just completely put their careers up to a different light altogether.
Yeah, and Stewie, I know you were a big La Liga fan back in the day. What were your feelings when Rafa came in? Because he came in a difficult time, because I think it had been already arranged that Heskey would be leaving. I think we got his best years already of his career had been kind of done by then. Owen was about to leave, which was for me a hammer blow at the time. Murphy, we didn't know at the time, but he was about to move on. What were you thinking as a Liverpool fan at the time? Do you think like he's definitely going to bring some good times back, or because of the outgoings that's coming, this might not be this might not be an instant impact?
No, I was the same opinion as Jonathan, and you mentioned the fact that the way Klopp came in, you're kind of in disbelief that we managed to secure this manager ahead of clubs that were probably in a lot better position than we were at that time. So I was over the moon to get Rafa Benitez, because he'd just come in on the back of, he'd won the league in 2001, 2002, and then he'd done it again in 3-4, and had won the UEFA Cup as well. And you mentioned, I was kind of I was a little bit heartbroken when Danny Murphy left. I used to love Danny Murphy, and it was one of them ones where you could it kind of dragged on for a few weeks, and in the back of my mind I was hoping he'd stay, because I was a really big fan of Danny Murphy. But when we got Benitez and he's bringing in Xavi Alonso and Luis Garcia, over the moon, absolutely over the moon. Because Garcia kind of came out of nowhere, and then he joined Barcelona, and he had this kind of season where it was just a wonder season, effectively, where he was just on fire. And then for us to secure him that was a big statement of intent from Rafa. And I had seen a good bit of Xavi Alonso when he was at Sociedad. He was a lot younger, obviously, but you could tell he was pure class. So it kind of salved my Danny Murphy wound, you could say. But you could tell his time at Valencia was kind of coming to an end. He'd been at war with the board a lot that season. And as we would find out when Gillette and Hicks came in, one thing Rafa does not like is being told what to do and have his hands tied behind his back, which is amazing. He lasted as long as he did at Newcastle. But so you could tell he was leaving, but the fact that we were the ones to get him was that was huge for me, absolutely huge. I was delighted with it.
Right. So, well, by December, Anto, it'd be fair to say it was a little bit underwhelming, or a little bit inconclusive in terms of how we were going to look on the Benitez long term, because they couldn't seem to string 3 wins together in the league. They kind of, plodded through a pretty average. I mean, in hindsight, a pretty average Champions League group. Deportivo went the force they were at that stage, and you feel like Monaco had, the team had kind of broken up a bit from the team that got to the Champions League final the year before. So when we got to the Olympiacos game, Liverpool need to win by 2 clear goals. And Liverpool, every time they got a good result, they 1 step forward, it was kind of 2 steps back. What was your feeling going into that night? Because Gerrard, famously said in the press the day before, I don't want to wake up on Thursday morning in the UEFA Cup. So were you confident going into that game? Olympiacos not a great team at the best of times, but Liverpool struggling. No striker really. Cisse was gone at this stage with an injury. Owen long gone, obviously. This is pre-Morientes. Barros kind of, he was never a kind of 20, even a 30 goals striker. So the Olympiacos game rolls around. What were your thoughts going into that?
I thought we were going to do it. I honestly did, because they weren't a great side, Olympiacos. And even on the night when we went 1-0 down, like, you could tell by the way they reacted to the equaliser that they were there for the taking. They were very fragile, a very classic Greek team, actually. A different prospect on their own patch, but they couldn't travel. They had an aging Rivaldo in their team, was kind of their star man. But no, I thought we could do it. But this was just a barmy season. Like, it's funny, like, when you look back on it now, in all of even in the group games, Liverpool felt like underdogs for a lot of their group games. That's how much off the radar they were that season. Like, you look now, every team Liverpool plays now, it's their biggest game of the season. You got Liverpool coming to town, and they always raise their game. But it helped us a lot that we weren't rated at all. Like, I remember when we bet Deportivo in Spain, I think we bet them 1-0. Did Biscan score?
He set up an own goal.
That was a huge. That felt like a turning point in a lot of ways, because I didn't think Liverpool were capable of going there and winning, and it was a brilliant performance. That was the first night where you got a glimpse of what Benitez was capable of in European football. Like, it was just a very clever game plan, and he out-thought them and outmaneuvered them, and he got performances from the likes of Biscan, that we hadn't seen to that point.
Right.
And I thought, obviously, I mean, it's easy to say it now, but I had the feeling that we were going to do it. Now, when they went 1-0 down, it was, you're thinking, well, that's that. But sometimes you just get a feeling within a game. You look at the opposition, and sometimes you're playing a team that can see it out, and sometimes you feel that there's a team there that are going to get the jitters, and they might bottle it in front of,
right,
a raucous Anfield as it was on the night.
Yeah. I mean, Jonathan, of course, we're all geniuses in hindsight, but I mean, realistically, I just felt when we beat Olympiacos, I just kind of felt like, well, at least we get 2 more games. Because, I mean, Chelsea at that stage were literally one of the best, to this day, still one of the best Premiership teams ever at that year. They were head and shoulders above everybody else. This is a year after, less than a year after the Invincibles. So Liverpool were well, down the pecking order. I didn't think for a second, now that we've done this, we can maybe go on and get to the final. Maybe we can win this. I never for a second. After the dust had settled on that, what were your feelings going into the second half of the season? Because it just kind of felt like, for me, it was almost, in hindsight, it was like the Lovren 4-3 against Dortmund, where this is a great night. We'll never forget this, but is it actually going to be worth it in the end?
Yeah, it was a strange one. I was a little bit younger at the time as well, so I was complete blind red blinkers optimism with a lot of this. And
you were insured something as well.
Yeah, I wish. You think I'm going to be the holiest Joe ever? Don't worry. I met up for it. I was in Kiev and I was in Madrid, so I got the church one out of the way. But going back to that, there, like, you could see there was a rebuilding, and look at the league position. 37 points? I think we finished behind Chelsea, and there was something like I think 14 or something losses as well. Like, there was a lot of bad results. But at the same time, I trusted Rafa so much that he was he literally had one of the worst squads in Europe, but he was just so good at kind of being that tactical genius and just getting and doing a number on a bigger coach and just grinding out a win. And you have to realize as well that football was in a strange place back then as well. There've been a couple of like shock results. You look at your Greece winning the Euros, even Porto winning the Champions League. It wasn't this kind of beautiful free flow and attacking football that we have now, where there was a kind of level of dominance. It was more of a level playing field, really, and we were able to do a job. And I guess the tempo of the football as well was a lot slower, and it kind of allowed Benitez just to do tactical, complete shut up shop for a lot of that, and we'd hit a lot of teams in the counter. So there was a little bit of blind optimism, and obviously as well, the biggest thing for me with the Olympiacos game was, you know, like all you guys as well, I'm sure you'd swallow it up and you'd consumed from reading and looking back at old clips as well at the famous Anfield nights, you know, the Saint Etienne one always comes to mind. And this felt like for me that I was we were getting our turn now, and we were lucky enough to kind of witness that. And the Olympiacos, once Olympiacos happened, I thought, you know what, there really is something special here, because for me as well, you go back to the previous run we had in the Champions League, which I was still, and even to this day, without bringing up old wounds, that tie against Bayern Leverkusen, where we missed all those chances in the away leg, and we brought him on for Smeacher, and Owen missed all those chances. That felt like me such a wasted opportunity. I thought we could have done a job back then. So this felt like the second coming, and strangely, I had some huge optimism really for us in the campaign, and what a campaign it turned out to be.
Well, I'd love to talk about, you know, the Gerrard goal, the Andy Gray commentary, and there's a lot of great moments around that part of the season. You know, you had the Neil Mellor last-minute goal against Arsenal, and the Leverkusen ties were great, and of course Juventus was great. But I mean, we're here to talk about Istanbul, and talk about Istanbul in itself is like someone asking you to break down the Lord of the Rings trilogy in a couple of minutes. So we need to move on to the semi-final. Stewie, I remember Chelsea beat Barcelona, and this is a Barcelona team that, you know, you had peak Ronaldinho, Deco at his best, Eto'o. But I almost would have rathered them than Chelsea, because at this stage they'd beaten us in the League Cup final. They beat us home and away. We didn't score against them in the league, home and away. They were just a far superior team in every single way. And I think one of the most underrated results of that whole season was getting a 0-0 in the first leg, even though we didn't get an away goal. So we go into that game. What are your thoughts on that semi? Because a lot of people say that is the greatest atmosphere that Anfield's ever seen. I don't know, maybe that's changed since the Barcelona game, but that to me is just as satisfying watching that semi-final. What were your thoughts going into that, and how do you look back at that now? Was that the greatest atmosphere that Anfield's ever seen?
Well, dude, I watched it at home, and you know, I'm not exaggerating when I say the telly was almost reverberating in the room. You could feel the power of Anfield just coming off the TV screen that night. The flags waving, the roar of the crowd, and you know, even the Chelsea players, the ex-Chelsea players, still talk about it to this day. And you know, they would have gone around to difficult places all around Europe, you know, over the years, and you know, we're here coming on 15 years in 3 weeks. And those ex-Chelsea players still talk about that atmosphere. Mourinho himself still talks about it. John Terry, he mentions it all the time. Anytime he's asked about Anfield, he talks about that night. It was an incredible atmosphere. And as you said, that Chelsea team was just, they were like a machine. Obviously they finished 37 points clear of us in the league. 37 points is just an absolute chasm.
Liverpool mathematically finished closer to the bottom of the table than they did to Chelsea. Yeah,
and then you mentioned that 0-0, and that 0-0 result was absolutely huge, because then I had a feeling when we got that 0-0, and we were coming off the back, the Leverkusen games were you know, it was 6-2 on aggregate, but the coming off the back of that Olympiacos result, that was a real kind of proper European atmosphere at Anfield. So I was confident enough in the Chelsea game, because the League Cup, I thought we played well enough in the League Cup final. Yeah. And then going into it, you see the flags and you hear the power of the crowd. And then obviously we get that early goal at the start. But then, you know, I don't remember a lot of that game apart from that the early goal. But
I bet you remember the last minute though. You have to.
The one thing that's the most nervous I've ever been watching.
You took the words. You took the words right out of my mouth.
I'd say I walked in and out of the sitting room at least 100 times. The only other time I can recall feeling like that was '94 against Italy after Houghton had scored that screamer. I remember. I think I just sat in the kitchen with my head in my hands for the last 10 minutes of that game, waiting.
I think Jonathan was just getting baptized that night.
But then, as we mentioned that the ball dropping to Eidur Gudjohnsen, and Eidur Gudjohnsen is probably up there with Mark Hughes as one of the best volleyers I've ever seen. His technique on the volleys was just it was superb. And when that ball is dropping, it felt like a lifetime. And my heart, I think, stopped. It stopped because I just expected him to smash that home. And when that went wide, I think my soul probably left my body, and I kind of I embraced the Lord like Jonathan on his even their graduation night. But once he put that ball wide, I knew we were there.
Well, this is for everybody. So jump in if you have, because I get the feeling most of us watched that at home. But the so-called ghost goal with Garcia, I feel is the most redundant argument in recent football history, because I'm not even going to say. I want you to finish what I'm about to say here. If it wasn't a goal, what would have happened?
Red card or penalty.
Yeah. Like Chelsea would have played about 88 minutes and I mean, in fairness, it's still not a given that Chelsea team playing, but Cech would have been sent off as the last man. I can't imagine Gerrard missing against Chelsea's second choice goalkeeper. Did Liverpool overall, because once they got the goal, they understandably, Benitez knew Chelsea were far, but we literally did. We didn't even hit them on the break. Overall, when you look back, considering the Gudjohnsen miss, and they had a couple other good chances, did we actually deserve to go through over those two legs? You think that's for anyone who wants to jump in?
I think we did. I think they did. Like Chelsea were a better version of Liverpool. Like they had more money, and they were quite similar in how they set themselves up. They weren't an expansive, attractive team, and I agree with the point that at the time you actually would have preferred to have faced Barcelona for that reason, because Barcelona were the type of team that you could nullify, as Liverpool did in 2001. Whereas Chelsea were a different proposition. They were essentially just a better version of Liverpool. So again, you made the point, Anton, the 0-0 at Stamford Bridge was a brilliant performance. And actually Liverpool, there wasn't many chances really, but they fully deserved a draw that night. And then I think, just to get past a team that was so superior to you over two legs was incredible. And just like to pick up on the atmosphere, there was a lot of things that fed into that night. That was a real perfect storm, because you had the whole thing with Mourinho shushing Liverpool fans at the League Cup final. Gerrard had been linked with a move to Chelsea, and then there was also this idea that Chelsea were new money. They had come into all this money, and it was a real north-south thing. And there was stories about Chelsea fans used to wave money at Liverpool fans in the 80s. And probably beyond that, so I mean, if Liverpool is a working class city, it's a sort of socialist city, and that was fuel for the anger for the crowd that night.
Rivalry rivalry exists today. It seems like it was born purely out of that season, though, wasn't it? The cup final, the shush, and the ghost goal.
Well, but then it lingered for a few years, because as Liverpool came to prominence again, they kept on meeting in Europe, didn't they? So. It got bitter, yeah. That was a bitter rivalry, but it still is. But for 5 years, it kind of, you never really thought of Chelsea as one of Liverpool's big rivals. I think you're right. I think it did kind of germinate around that era. But that was an angry answer.
Rafa himself even said, you can say Mourinho kind of stoked that a bit himself. Rafa said Mourinho was never concerned with Liverpool until they bet him that night.
Yeah,
and we all know what Mourinho's like.
Yeah,
so you can tell the seed germinated in Jose that night, and it just escalated from there.
I think their final or their big game was when they bet Barcelona. I think they thought once they did that our name's on the trophy, and there was maybe a little bit of complacency. They and in fairness, understandably, because.
It would be like the Liverpool of this season with the League One already going into play. I mean, who's trying to get in the top four? This Man United. If Liverpool were playing this Man United team at the moment in a semi-final,
or Arsenal,
I mean,
yeah, it will be, yeah.
All right, lads. So, like I said, we got to get into Istanbul here. I could talk about that Chelsea semi all night, but we get to the final, and I had dealt with us the whole way. And not because I didn't totally believe. I mean, there was nothing to base it on in terms of Rafa. I mean, we were just so Jekyll and Hyde. Like, I remember we beat Juventus, but then I think Crystal Palace beat us at Selhurst Park a few days later. It was just constantly this great European night, and then followed by a terrible result in the league. So when we got to Milan, at that point I was a believer. At that point I thought we are going to win this, but I thought it was obvious how we were going to beat them. We beat Juventus by a 0-0 away at Juventus, a 0-0 at Chelsea, and then snatching a scrappy goal in the second leg. I just thought we have to keep a clean sheet if we're going to beat this Milan team. And then Jimmy Traore does a Jimmy Traore thing in the first minute, Jonathan.
Yeah, it's just incredible, really. And I suppose you're right in the fact that Benitez almost kind of went against from his own principles, really. It doesn't get talked a lot after, obviously, the way the result went, and then the Harry Kewell substitution, injury, whatever way you want to look at that as well. But strip back a second. How attacking did he go? He really went for it. He saw the space behind Pirlo. He played Gerrard in the 2. It didn't work out. We got completely overran in the first half, particularly towards the end of the half, where we pushed on trying to get that equaliser. And the second and third goal are just scrumptious, just beautiful football. But yeah, he was strange in the fact that I thought as well, like you did, that it would be this kind of absolutely park the bus and try and get a goal on the counter and then park the bus again, because that's really what we were associated with. That was us in Europe. We were this kind of powerhouse, really, and we didn't get to see it. And then 56 seconds or whatever it was into the game, and it was interesting. I watched back a little bit of it earlier. The thing that flashed into my mind was the set piece goal. Remember, Rafa brought in the zonal marking straight away, and how many we conceded in the Premier League, and it was obviously an area that they target as well. And there was actually a couple of set pieces in the game where we could have conceded more from as well. It was just strange, and there'd been so much hype. And just a silly little tangent as well. One of the reasons why I was so confident we're going to win. Do you remember there was this weird scenario of events that had happened the last time Liverpool had won the European Cup? There was like a royal wedding. I think was it the Pope died? There was like 6 or 7 little things, and then it was the last one was Liverpool wearing red against a team versus white. And I was I was a lot younger then as well. I was completely and utterly convinced that we were going to do it, but it was strange. Like, that first half was ridiculous, really. It was just because we actually created a couple of opportunities. Before the second one, we probably should have had a penalty with the handball, and then they come straight down the pitch and cut us open. It was a crazy game of football, that was.
Stewie, because Milan kind of got a bit of an unusual, they didn't blitz their way to the final. They beat Man United, just got over the line against Man United over 2 legs. And then they people forget this, but they very nearly didn't get to the final. They got a goal in the last minute against PSV, and PSV were kind of like doing what we were doing. So if in another world you could have had 2, it could have been just 2 chancers having a go at that. Basically, it would have been like the year before when you had Monaco. Yeah. So I kind of thought, this is a good Milan team. They're going for the Serie A title. And then when I saw this picture, I don't know if you're looking at the picture I'm looking at, it was a little bit like that scene in Space Jam when the team becomes the aliens, and Bugs Bunny basically shits himself. And I just thought, and I mean, when you look at it now, there's no fat on that. That's just, there's no filler. That's just, I mean, and it's not just that they're fantastic players. They're players in their prime, that Milan team. And the thing is, they have a player up front who's on loan. I mean, in Crespo.
From Chelsea.
Can you just call the team out, Anto? Can you actually go through the team?
Right. Well, we've got, Maldini, who was probably in his 6,000th, Champions League final at this stage. You got Dida, who, in hindsight, was the weak link of the team. I thought he was always an overrated goalkeeper. Shevchenko, you could argue his decline from this game, because Chelsea signed him a year later, and we all know what happened there. Stam, Was he a better defender? Was he a better defender than what United? Maybe he was. Nesta in his prime. Seedorf was just always in his prime. Kaká, definitely. This is basically the Kaká years. Pirlo, I would almost put in the same bracket as Seedorf, where you never remember a time when Pirlo wasn't great. Gattuso, probably the best player in that position, that kind of ball-winning, scrappy player. Crespo had got 2 goals in both legs, Man United home and away. And then you had Cafu, who, I mean, is probably the greatest right-back ever. So, Stewie, when you saw that team, and then you saw the Liverpool team, which, you know, there's kind of a few questions within this question if you want. You saw Harry Kewell playing, who'd been a real disappointment. Liverpool had the choice basically between signing him and Duff. We got Kewell, which I thought was the right choice. He clearly wasn't. He was just not that player anymore. He got the nod. And so the lineup, if you just give me a second, the lineup that we had that night is Barros up front, with Kewell playing behind them. Gerrard's playing in a deep role. Jimmy Traore playing left back with Risa in midfield. What did you think when you saw our team and when you saw their team?
Similar to you in that it just, a wave of fear just went through my body. Space Jam, that's
Did you go to Mass?
You Space Jammed it.
I went straight up to Mass and lit a candle. As you said, like look at that Milan team. It's incredible. You know what I mean? Like you've got, like we talked last week about that final being the Gerrard final. I'd say you can say the first 45 minutes of this were the Kaká half, because he was just. I mean, I've never seen a midfield performance like it. Like the third goal, that pass is just mind blowing. How he kind of bends it around. It's Gerrard. He kind of pirouettes away from initially, isn't it? And then he just takes one look and just bends this ball right into Crespo's run, and Carragher is like stretching, trying to get anything on it, and then Crespo just dinks it past Dudek. I think I just held my hands up and said, sure, how can you can't live with that. Like they just played football on another level to us that night in the first 45. And as you said, you know, we're looking at our team with like a kind of crocked Harry Kewell. Like you could tell even from the start that he was never going to finish that game. He just looked way off the pace, and he lasted 20 minutes? 25 minutes.
Well, booed off by his own supporters in the European Cup final after 23 minutes.
Yeah, I mean Harry Kewell suffered with gout as a professional footballer. You know what I mean? They're the levels. Like you mentioned Seedorf. Seedorf's probably still in his peak now. You know what I mean? That's the difference in levels we were talking about that night. And of course, like, you know, he gets a ribbon a lot of the time, Jimmy Traore, but that's who we're playing at left back, and they're playing Paolo Maldini at left back.
Yeah. I mean,
the levels we're talking about.
The thing is, I mean, jump in whoever wants to get here first. But like I said, at 1-0, I'm really, really worried. But it because of how it happened. I mean, Liverpool literally, I don't think, touched the ball before they picked the ball out of the net. But at 1-0, you're never going to write your team off after 1 minute, and you're 1-0 down. So like Jonathan said a while ago, Liverpool actually didn't play that badly. There was a handball kind of incident with Garcia, but then we slowly got into the game, and then Milan get the second. And like I said, whoever wants to jump in here, but that's what I'm thinking. I wasn't thinking humiliation at the second, but I was thinking, you know, with Kewell off, who, for all his troubles, you probably maybe still think he was more capable at that stage of producing something than Smeacher. So we're 2-0 down. We've already made a substitution. Our key players like Gerrard and Alonso are not getting a touch. What's your feelings at 2-0?
Well, I think Benitez tried to. I think he tried to surprise Milan. I remember talking about this game with a friend of mine before the game, and we felt that Milan were an aging team and a little bit slow. And PSV had actually exposed that in the semi-final. PSV should have beaten them. They should have beaten them in the semi-final. And I think a lot of Liverpool fans took heart from that. The problem was that that just proved to be an off night. They were an unbelievable team. As you say, you go through that team. There was like, where's the weak link? There was no weak link. Just phenomenal. And when Liverpool, I think Benitez was thinking, well, they're just going to expect us to sit in. They'll have all the ball, and we'll be looking for the counter. So he actually tried to second guess them and exploit the space behind Pirlo. The problem was the game plan is out the window after 40 seconds. Right. So what do Liverpool do? They stick to the game plan, and they did respond well to the first goal. They should have had a penalty, actually, as you said. But now they're leaving huge gaps, and you're leaving gaps the likes of Kaká, Crespo, Pirlo. Like, I mean, you're in big trouble. And Milan just soaked it up. And when they hit Liverpool, it was devastating. So like a 2-0 and then 3-0. Like, I think. Look, we'll get to it later. But I was ready to walk to Lime Street and get the train home. Right. 3-0. I mean, it was you just thought this is going to be 5 and 6 if Milan wanted. There was just no back.
I presume it's not just highlights. I presume we've all watched the full game. I mean, you would have to at this point. It's in our blood basically. But John, how would you? I mean, in a half where Liverpool, it looked like boys against men. Have you seen a more dominant display by a player in terms of Kaká? Because what he did, it was actually the semi-final before we played them 2 years later, where his performance at Old Trafford, where he gets, 2 amazing goals. One of them is astonishing. But this performance, to do this in a Champions League final, I think there was the moment where he sets up the Crespo goal. Just talk us through what you thought of his performance that night, even looking back now, and what a player he was, because it just kind of feels like it was like the Nirvana of or Sex Pistols of footballers, where he burned really brightly for a couple of years, and then it might as well have ended. Like he just seemed like at Real Madrid, he was a shadow of a player, and then he ends up playing in Orlando. I mean, this right here, this from 2005 to 2007, that's his peak, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And I don't think people, you nearly almost forget to a certain extent just how good he was at that spell with Milan. You're talking best player in the world levels. He really was at that elite player. He was the player that you watched in highlight packages. He was the player that you kept an eye on, see what he scored, you see what he done this week. He was just at the top of his game. And it always surprised me, without going again off in too much of a tangent, when Real Madrid signed himself and Ronaldo in the same summer, I genuinely thought that Kaká would have been the one to go on to the Ronaldo levels. Yeah. It always surprised me how he kind of never really settled in, and I don't really know what happened. And then, as you said, ended up in Orlando. It was just a strange one. It didn't make sense really, but for that spell, he was just unbelievable. And that 45 minutes, it just and utterly. I know we played into their hands a good bit the way we're set up, and then we went gung-ho. And it's interesting, you speak to Rafa and he will tell you he was almost, Gerrard gets a lot of the plaudits, but he was almost furious with Gerrard in the first half for he was just tearing forward and leaving space for him to cut into. It was just, we just played it to their hands, but the image that comes into my mind really is the third goal where Carragher lunges out, as you guys have discussed, and he stretches. And he got on a lot of ball that night, but would late lunges and stretches, but he just couldn't get near this. And he's just, you're watching it back and you're going, what can you even do against this? It's just undefendable. But somehow, the rest is history after that, really, isn't it? And that spell in the 50 minutes, or 54, 6 and 59, is forever enwrenched, really. And to go from the pictures of despair that you have here to going on to completely come back into the game and take it to another level after that.
When the third goes in, it's an absolutely gorgeous goal, because Kaká basically nutmegs, or he just does Gerrard, and then plays a first-time ball. He doesn't take a touch, look up, size up his option. He knows exactly what he's doing. Carragher, it looks like the last minutes of the game. Carragher's stretching desperately to cut it out. It's perfectly. Crespo doesn't have to take a touch, and Crespo produces this kind of flick. Yeah, just a dink, like it was Asprilla-esque at Anfield. It was past Dudek. And at that moment there, Stewie, that's the moment where I'm thinking, I didn't have Google next to me, you know, to forget how long ago this was, but if this happened now, I'd be jumping on Google and typing in what's the biggest Champions League final defeat ever. I just thought we're going to be humiliated, we're going to be stripped naked in front of the whole of Europe. We'd been teasing Man United fans about 4 days before because they just lost the FA Cup final at Arsenal. So at 3-0 down, there's no sign of a score. And Dida, you know, you can talk about that handball incident all you want. Dida hadn't been tested. Barros, you know, he kind of played the Firmino role, but not nearly as effective back then. He wasn't a goal scorer. He kind of was more of a link-up player, and he would run at players and win free kicks and win corners. So at 3-0 down, I mean, is it in your head to think, I don't even want to watch this? Like, all banter aside, you know, you want to stay with your team. But for me, I didn't want to watch the second half. Like, if I was looking for a way to just turn it off and just do something else that night, but I couldn't.
Yeah, it's completely, it's the foremost thought in my head at that time. As I said, the third goal goes in, and I think I did just raise my hands up and exclaim, how can you live with that? Because as you said, it's just an absolutely gorgeous goal. But then, yeah, thoughts go to how big is this scoreline going to be? Because, you know, if someone had offered me the game can finish with 3-0 now, I probably would have taken it, because you do not want to be getting bet 6 in a European Cup final. You really don't. So half-time came, and I strolled across the road to the chipper, which is just at a diagonal as you walk out the door to the Bruins, and I had a burger on my own. No one came with me. I sat there eating a quarter pounder. It was pissing rain outside. I remember it vividly, pissing rain. And I just stared out the window and thought, how can I go back over there? I really
Bon Jovi. It sounds like a Bon Jovi music video you're describing.
In a way it was. And the lyrics to Always must have come into my head then. And, I will love Liverpool always. So something made me walk back across that road and sit back down, and thank God I did, because Jesus Christ, what a night, what a second half.
So Anto, the halftime team talk is now legendary. What do you tell me what you know of what happened at halftime?
Well, I actually think this is going to be a little bit controversial. I think Benitez gets a little bit too much credit for it, because I think at halftime he just redressed the mistakes that he made in the first place. There was no way that he should have started like that. And so he just played the team that he should have started with. And in all fairness, Liverpool, what happened was a freak. You know, it wasn't like they went on and dominated the second half. They just pinged them in 5 minutes, crazy minutes. Like, we'll watch football for the rest of our lives and we'll never see anything like that in a game of that magnitude. It was unbelievable. So, you know, look, I think what Benitez was brilliant at, and by the way, like, I'm not downplaying what a great manager he was for Liverpool. He's a brilliant manager and still is a great manager. I think what he's great at is being very calm when everyone else was maybe losing their head. So he looked at it very logically. But I wouldn't, like, it wasn't that like he pulled a rabbit out of the hat. He just reverted to what he should have started with. Like, I had left the rubber sole at halftime because a really bad row had broken out, as I referenced earlier. It was lads bouncing chairs over each other's hairs.
What did you do?
It was crazy. It just got real sour. We all got evacuated, and I was heading for Lime Street. I just said, I may as well just go back to Birmingham ASAP. And as I was walking past, I think it was McCooley's bar. It was still on Matthew Street. It was like something out of a fucking rom-com. I just looked in the window.
Better than a Bon Jovi video.
Maybe this was, I looked at the passage of play leading up to Gerrard's header. I watched that passage of play, and when the header went in, I walked into the pub, and 4 minutes later, Liverpool were level. And it was bananas. And there was a lot of people, by the way, that were leaving with me. There was like a crowd gathered with me to watch that little passage of play. And then we all had the same, let's just see what happens here. And it just kicked off. It was amazing.
I've got a pretty ugly confession to make. I was working in
Save it for Jonathan's Mass.
This is the Mass. This is a confession box, lads. I was working in an office in Swords, and I hadn't been working there very long. And this was around a time where I was, I don't know, I was a little bit of a puss. I didn't, when it was the bigger the game, I just thought if it goes badly, I'd rather be in the comfort of my own home. So I turned down a couple of invitations to go into town. Big nights were happening. I stayed home, and at 3-0, I just walked up to my room. I left the sitting room, walked up to my room, and just started aimlessly kind of strumming the guitar and looking at the little portable. I'm watching Liverpool in a Champions League final on a little portable TV, and I only turned it on just because I thought,
Can I ask you a question?
Go for it. What Blur song was I playing?
Was it Always by Bon Jovi?
And as I played it, I looked out the window, and there was Stewie with his burger.
And then you watched the rom-com.
This is the ugly confession part. When I'm kind of skipping ahead here, but when Gerrard gets the goal, I didn't celebrate in the slightest. I did not celebrate in the slightest because that's what I thought it was. I thought it was a consolation. And I didn't even celebrate when Smeacher scored. I put the guitar down and thought, well, hang on a second, there's a game on here. But I honestly, nobody could convince me what I'd seen in that, because that was 45 minutes of, they were basically, it was the defeat that I felt had been coming for a while that year, because we never actually got hammered that season in any competition. But I kind of felt, you know, Dudek's not a very good goalkeeper. He looks all at sea for all of these goals, even though you'd say he has no chance. So we come out for the second half, and I would slightly disagree with Anto in terms of he didn't do a lot. He did correct the mistake, but I think the fact that he came in and was calm, you know, you can imagine a manager like, maybe Klopp, or Sam Allardyce. You kind of think that old-fashioned, you know, throwing teacups around. He had a calm head on him, and the fans start singing "You'll Never Walk Alone." The players can hear this. The Milan dressing room are singing. This is not, you know, this is not me presume. This is a story that's come out since. The Milan players are literally singing. He puts a man in midfield. He lets Gerrard go further up the pitch. So again, this is for anyone who wants to jump in here. At what point? So when Gerrard scores that goal, what's the significance of him scoring it? I mean, let's say Jimmy Traore scores it and it comes off his knee. It's the fact that it's Gerrard, the captain, and then he gives that kind of celebration afterwards. Did that make the difference? Because the crowd it wasn't just a cheer of the crowd to think, all right, if we now maybe we'll get beaten 4-1. It was an actual kind of like, you know what? There's 40 minutes left here. We've got a chance. So what were you thinking when he puts that header in?
Well, I was thinking, you know, as we said, like the Kaka, the first 45 minutes was the Kaka half. But at that time, like Gerrard was like, you know, he wasn't that far off Kaka when it comes to the best midfielders in the world. Mm-hmm. And as you mentioned, the significance of Gerrard scoring it. When he scores that header, in my head, I'm thinking, right, finally is a chance for him to show what he can do on this level. Because as you said in the first half, he kind of loses his head in a way. He kind of goes chasing it, and he loses all discipline, and we get punished with the second 2 goals. But the fact he's pushed further forward and he's got that kind of insurance policy of a man behind him, it's almost like free reign for Gerrard to go and prove himself on this level. And as you mentioned, the fact that it's him burying that header and then gives that celebration where he's giving it the come on, let's go. To me, that was a big moment.
John, and how important is it that Liverpool scored literally straight away then? I mean, if that goes on for another 20 minutes and Milan settle into it, how important is it that we score basically while we're almost still celebrating the first one?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And getting the early one was key because it's flashbacks really to the Olympicanos, the Pangol one right at half time as well. It was almost like muscle memory, and you know, they were staggered. The formation change as well, going through the back and really pushing up, and we just had runners in from everywhere with the wing backs, and Stevie just running wild, but this time in the correct manner, and have as you guys have touched on there, having that enforcer behind him just to close out the space. And you know, the small little things that it flashed into my head again there. You watch the first goal, Rize's first cross is blocked. Mm-hmm. If that hadn't been blocked, it wouldn't have happened. It's just tiny small margins, but then to get the second goal, and then when it's Smeacher as well, and you're there watching it back, and you're like, don't shoot.
Yeah.
Okay, go on, shoot. And even small little things as well, like, so the first one is the ricochet back off the first cross, and the second one is bang on. Gerrard flicks it in. The second one is probably Smeacher. He's not going to do that 9 times out of 10. Barros kind of just about jumps out of the way of the flight to the ball, and then without getting too far, we know what happens with the penalty as well. So all 3 goals have that margin of luck or whatever, the good, maybe it was the prayers or it was the candles or whatever, but there was that element of kind of the roll of the dice going your particular way as well, and it's just pandemonium. Like, I don't think you'll ever see a series of minutes in a European Cup final as utterly as crazy as that ever again, really.
Believe me, I want to linger on the Smeacher goal, because Anto actually he's one of the only people, including Smeacher, to have Smeacher on the back of a Liverpool jersey. So I do want to linger on it, but like I said, I want to keep this podcast down to 4 hours. So we'll move on to the equaliser, Anto. Tell me your thoughts on this, because was it even a penalty? Is it because Gerrard knows he's looking for a touch. He probably I don't know. He's not exactly through on goal. He's just looking for a touch. Is it a penalty when you first saw it? Or did you think like that's a penalty? And even now, looking back, do you think he made the most of it? We were a little bit lucky there.
At the time, it happened so quickly that I wasn't sure. When I look back, to me, it's definitely a penalty. That is a penalty. It's what you'd call a European penalty. Like, look, I'll ask you this. If the roles were reversed, would a Milan player have gone down? Absolutely. Like a Crespo or somebody, that they would have bought it. It was a cynical little check from Gattuso. He was trying to put him off his stride. So it wasn't a very obvious foul. It was actually a very Italian foul. It was just he knew what he was doing. So it was definitely a penalty. I think so, yeah.
And the man who steps up is someone that you would never expect to miss, and he did. Anto, Xabi Alonso. We have to just kind of tip our cap to Xabi for a minute, because I remember watching his debut against Bolton, and I hadn't seen a midfielder like that. Maybe in my whole life to that point. You had Jamie Redknapp, who is one of his strong points was like long range pass, and Gerrard in his kind of breakthrough years as well. But he was a little bit inconsistent in when he would follow up a great ball with trying to play a Hollywood pass, and it wouldn't come off. But Xabi Alonso, he reminded me of John Barnes in the way that when he wanted, he could make a game. He could slow the game down to his tempo, and when he was on it, everything flowed through him. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Xabi Alonso overall, your early impressions on, but also that penalty. Do you think maybe I'm the only one here. I think it's an underrated finish, the rebound, because if you're looking at that picture, even it's on his left foot. If he hits it along the ground, Nesta's going to block it.
Yeah.
He manages to hit it into the roof of the net. So Anto, the third goal, what was going through your mind when he was stepping up? Because I thought he was going to bury it.
Well, he looked very nervous before he took it, and you're right. The rebound was an underrated finish, because I think what happened was when he missed, it broke the nervous tension, and then when he finished, it was just instinctive. It was just instinctive, and he's such an intelligent player that he would do something like that without even thinking it, just lift the ball over the keeper. Like Alonso was, when you think about it, I think this is a big part of why I really, and I think a lot of us loved Alonso. He was unusual for Liverpool. We didn't have many players. He was maybe one of the first who came as a young player. I think, was he 22, 23?
Mm-hmm.
He was a young guy that came from a different country to Liverpool as like a key man. And he just had a sort of maturity beyond his years. He always kind of held himself very well, very level-headed, a real controller of games. Well, I don't think Liverpool hadn't seen a player like that in a long time, probably since the 80s. He was a brilliant footballer, a brilliant midfielder. And, look, when that went in, all bets are off. And funny, I think maybe 2 or 3 minutes after that, Risa had a shot saved by Dida, a long-range shot.
Yeah.
So I remember thinking, we're going to win this. Like, we are going to. That was the last chance we had.
Yeah.
That was it. It was like then Milan it was like we had someone had given Milan a magic potion. and they woke
It
up.
was as if they were still in the dressing room and they sent out the kit man.
It was weird.
Well, Gattuso was still at the on the side of the pitch kissing the trophy for a
He was
good
attaching more ribbons to it.
15
Yeah.
minutes.
kissing Princess
Yeah.
Fiona.
So, Stu, you said the Good Johnson moment was your most nervous moment as a Liverpool supporter. Is this up there as well? That when he's lining up Alonso, and Anto's right, he does look nervous. Are you thinking he's burying this? It's 3-3. Now we can win it, or were you? What's going through your head at that moment?
No, I'm thinking he's missing. Just because we've got that, like I got the, I bought the DVD. I bought the DVD as soon as it came out for this. I must have watched it every day for a good year. And there's that thing where it's like a close up on Alonso's face just before he starts to run up, and he kind of, and I always I talk about it with some of my mates. Sometimes he does this kind of he kind of purses his lips.
Yeah.
It's kind of nervous purse of his lips.
Yeah,
and the minute he does that, I think he's missing. He just looks so nervous. And as we talk about the rebound is brilliant because, as you said, it's on his bad foot, but like he's so switched on that the minute like other less intelligent players, the minute they miss, there's a pause there where they're thinking, "Fuck, I've missed," and then they might try and get a rebound. The minute he misses, he's on it, and it shows you how good a defender Nesta was as well, because Nesta is right behind him.
Yeah,
he's on it as well. So to finish it on his left foot with Nesta breathing right behind him, breathing down his neck, was a top class finish under that sort of pressure.
Jonathan, Steven Gerrard, the talks about in terms of his individual performance, they usually mention Cardiff, because he won the game on his own. What's forgotten though is, I think if it's not all of it, it's the majority of extra time where he plays right back against and Serginho's fresh on, and Steven Gerrard, it's absolutely incredible, like his performance there. I mean, this is a guy who must have been thinking, I'm the talisman in this team, almost by default. Barras doesn't have goals in him. Cisse is coming back from a broken leg. Morientes obviously can't play because of now. There is no goals in that team. He's probably thinking, I'm the captain. I'm going to score the winning goal tonight. But he's put back into right back position. Liverpool at this point, it's pretty obvious. It's pretty obvious that they're going for penalties. I mean, is that almost that to me? Like when people compare Gerrard to Scholes, Man United fans, I've had many an argument. They say Scholes is just, I'm sorry, he's a better player than Gerrard, and Frank Lampard, he's a better player. There's not many midfielders that could do that though. That go to right back against an out and out winger like Serginho, who's all about pace, and basically see Liverpool over the line.
Oh, without doubt, it's. Anybody that wants to compare Gerrard to Scholes or Lampard or many other attacking midfielders, just watch them that period of extra time. Scholes couldn't tackle. Lampard couldn't tackle. But what Gerrard did in that final is the Gerrard final, the FA Cup final, which you talked about in great detail and in depth last week, hit the headlines really in terms of, it's the absolute Hail Mary at the end.
Right.
He has a couple of goals, and it's the eye catching stuff. But this really is game winning stuff here. The performance he put in at right back when he was jaded. It was his third position of the night. It was and we're absolutely hammering forward, and it's probably the biggest indication of how Gerrard developed under Benitez. You speak to Benitez, he will tell you about the final. He'll keep referencing the fact that he played three different positions. The right back or the right wing back position, the way he absolutely, like Serginho was absolutely electric. And they clearly sent him on because Smeister, who had been playing there, was absolutely gassed, even though he only come on as a sub. He was pretty much out in his deathbed almost for the remainder of the game. Gerrard, he puts in this. And it's so unlike the first 45 minutes where we've criticised him for his tactical indiscipline and exposing space and leaving the team exposed defensively. But like, what a solid performance! And like the waves of attack kept coming, and he just kept flying in, clearing. It's always, it doesn't give us as much credit as it should do, because that was a proper all-round midfielder, all-round footballer, and to me, it proves just why Gerrard will be and is one of the best to put in a performance like that when his team needed him most at the absolute depths against one of the best teams in the world at the time. It doesn't get enough credit, I think, even from Liverpool fans as well. But it was another angle, and you look at that for the miracle save from Shevchenko from a mile out. That one, I definitely pooed myself as well. I have no idea how that ball looped up. And even you listen to Dudek, he's like, I've never seen a ball go like that before. Once it hit me, I knew it was going over the bar. It was just, whether we like it or not, we had got a huge element of luck and the positive spirits or whatever we want to go. Because there's so many things, but Gerrard's performance at right wing back was just incredible. A pure skipper. And the last thing I'll say in it, just to contrast it, is Gerrard against the infamous game against Chelsea with the slip where we lose the title, was completely all over the place with a younger manager that didn't know how to control him. Here's Benitez, able to put him into the right mindset and get him, even though, like, because if Rodgers had done that, imagine, Stephen, you just go over there, a right wing back there, just sit back. No, I'm going to bomb forward. He put in the tactical performance that he needed, and really speaks volumes of the whole performance, really.
All right, well, that's a nice segue then, because Stewie, I want you to do what no man, including the men involved in the incident, couldn't do, and that's explain that Dudek save. Shevchenko is, at the time, Shevchenko would be like a modern day Lewandowski is now. Just an incredible goal return in a very difficult league at the time to score goals in. And he's 3 yards out after a header that he hit, came back to him. He's 3 yards out. Andy Gray, I'll never forget his commentary. He just goes, when that happens, you have to start carving Liverpool's name into the cup. Did you remember that incident happening? How did Dudek save that? And do you agree, like, when that happens, just start carving Liverpool's name into it?
Yeah, absolutely. That was the moment. I'm very pessimistic a lot of the time, and when that happened, they didn't have the Sky. They had the Clive Tilsley was on commentary duty down in the Bruins. But I think it was Andy Townsend echoed a similar sort of sentiment of kind of, when you're seeing that, you've got to start believing that it is your night. And I subscribe to that theory. I can't explain it. It's like asking to explain why Spielberg went back into the fourth Indiana Jones. Like, know what I mean?
Well, that was my next question, actually.
Don't bother, because we can't. No one's going to explain it. I can't explain it. You said Dudek can't explain it. But like, you could say that, like, look at Jeff, like, obviously people don't have the luxury of looking at the pictures that we do, but you can see there's a picture of Shevchenko behind the net with his head in his hands. That's probably the moment where his slump happened. From there, he probably just gave up on football altogether. I know I probably would have if I missed from there against Jersey Dudek. But Dudek kind of gives a kind of real confident nod as well, doesn't he? The camera kind of zooms in. There's
a little bit of a wink, isn't there?
Yeah, there's a wink and a kind of, I think he himself is thinking, I think we're winning this now. It was an incredible save, an incredible moment in the game. And that miss is one of the first things people think of when they think about that period in extra time.
Can I say that Dudek channels Will Smith in the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air with that nod?
Absolutely. Where he's knocking on when he's knocking on the door with the hat.
Backwards.
And he does
I mean, Anton, fairness, that's one of the oldest footballing cliches there is.
And going back to your rom-com as well, you have the Reezy little smucker on the lips as well for Dudek as a give of thanks. It's gone full circle here, guys.
But that's a great way to say full circle, because Anto, this is for you. Dudek, I mean, he realistically never really plays for Liverpool after this. He stayed for 2 more seasons, which is unbelievable when you think about it. But Pepe Reina was Liverpool's number 1 after this. But after that save, as well, it's the Jersey Dudek show. And because you mentioned this, I think, last week about him off his line. Talk me through Dudek's role in that pen shootout.
Well, look, I mean, fair play to him, because he goes into folklore that's it now. He is in Anfield folklore. He's the guy that helped Liverpool win the European Cup.
But just quickly, there, if I said name 2 defining memories or two defining games from Dudek, this would be one of them. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, the other one would be
Forland.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in fairness, Anto, he did kind of redeem himself in the League Cup final in 2003. Didn't when against Man United, he was the man of the match, I think, that day.
He did, but my point would be like he came full circle. I mean, even Steven Gerrard says it in the interview on the pitch. He puts his arm around him and says, "The stick that this lad's got for the Man United goals." Like it's the ending of a pretty sad chapter, though, isn't it? Because he had a great season. That's forgotten now. He had a great first season, but then had two really poor seasons where Houllier goes out and buys two goalkeepers on the same day. And Carson was just too young at the time. Kirkland kept getting injured. So Dudek kind of felt played by default. So, I mean, talk me through your memories of that. I mean, that picture that we're looking at the moment, he's basically standing next to Serginho.
Yeah, well, he was a talented goalkeeper, but he was error prone, and he was in my opinion, he was a little bit small, or he certainly lacked stature. So, like, he never filled you with confidence, and he was also a guy who, if he made a mistake or he had a bad game, it really affected him. Like, it would have a knock on for 2, 3, 4, 5 games. Well, look, on the night, it was his night. He made the famous save. I think in all fairness, in this day and age with VAR and all the rest, there's 3 of them penalties that are getting retaken because he's off his line. Like he is off his line up to maybe a yard at the worst. But I think he was maybe chancing his arm initially, and he was thinking, I'm getting away with this and getting like by the last save, he is at least a yard off his line.
He's almost standing in the centre circle with the other players.
He's in the huddle, yeah.
Jonathan, let's get to the money shot. I mean, we've had it really good over the last 18 months. You think of winning another European Cup and almost, getting a 97-point, season. But for a long, long time, that shot that you're looking at there of Shevchenko getting his penalty saved by Dudek, that is, that's like Dalglish getting the winning goal at Stamford Bridge to win the league. It's Kennedy getting the winning goal against Madrid. I know you're probably in church at this stage, or maybe you were watching it, but what?
No, we're truly in the pub now at this stage.
Were you able to register, even as a young man? Were you able to register what had just happened? Like, this wasn't as if like you've just won the FA Cup. We've gone from a team that barely got into the Champions League. We're European champion. We didn't even qualify for it as well. Everton finished above us. We finished, we've already talked about this. We finished closer to the bottom of the table. Were you able to process? Because I wasn't able to process what was happening. It was just like some sort, like I'd won the lottery. Like it's not, and I mean the European Cup that we won last year, to be honest, the Barcelona game is the final. Everything, and that's a great Liverpool team that should be winning something. This is just a very kind of Cinderella moment. This is just like, what are we even doing here? Oh, okay, we've won it. What's going through your mind? Because after 2 penalty misses as well, Liverpool, it does look like in hindsight we're winning that European Cup.
Yeah, well, I guess initially once the penalty is saved and we run off, I just picture being with a couple of my close friends. We're in the pub at this stage, and we're in our fancy suits. It's a graduation night. We're ready to go out in the town. We're in the pub. We're kind of lined up arm in arm, absolutely crapping ourselves, praying to every sort of force, doing anything we can to try and get this. And then it's just complete euphoria, and the whole club goes crazy. And I don't know how many points, glasses are broken, and it's just like it almost turned into Anthony's halftime riot there, where it's just going crazy. And then we're out in the street. I just picture us, remember, tearing out in the front of the street, running around, just screaming yes, and all the United supporters are trying to scupper away, get the hell as fast as they can away from us, because they know what's coming after the stick that they've given us maybe an hour previously at this rate. But it's completely euphoric, and just look at that moment there, and Carragher winning the sprint after going down a cramp, and it's another little facet of the game that doesn't get described enough. Those couple of clearances where he's down and he's out, he stretches, but this time he's making connections. He's down, rolling over. Everybody compares him to Kuhl earlier in the game, for better or for worse. He's up again, and he's stretching, and the little scene then as well where the camera shoots on him before the penalty shootout, where he's going up to screaming in the face of Dudek, and pretty much I think it translates to, do you remember Gobbler? Just do anything at all.
Yeah,
and Dudek's trying to get in the zone, trying to get poker face and all this. It's a magical moment, and it is folklore, and it's ironic, really. The Benitez era is rightly very fondly, his time at Liverpool is very rightly remembered for good reasons. But while we had some absolutely fascinating times and wonderful nights, this trophy that we were very fortunate to win is probably the biggest achievement. It kind of almost, if you want to look at it from a cold face, it almost kind of went a little down here. This is the memory that we have really of the era. And I had the pleasure of speaking to Rafa there a couple of years ago, and he made a very interesting point that I thought it kind of struck home with me. He's like, we won the one we should have lost, and we lost the one we should have won. He's referring to the both Champions League finals, and I suppose that in its effect adds to the whole kind of folklore and romanticism, really, that it is. With another kind of, we're so blessed. I don't think we appreciate at times the chapters, the stories that we have. They like, even looking this opportunity here to chat to a couple of people and mates or whatever, to reminisce with such little stories in each kind of final, moments where you were and what you did, and little aspects of the game come into life. And we could do this for another month, for so many other nights that come in the next couple of years. We've no choice, really. But I think the other football supporters don't have that luxury. I think we are, and the biggest thing for me, I'll stop rambling then, from a personal point of view, is these are the stories I grew up listening to stories from my parents, reading, kind of seeing clips, seeing all videos from the good old days in the 70s, the 80s. These are the moments that we have witnessed, that we have seen, that we have the angles to discuss on, and there's a lot more to come for. I think we really are privileged, really, when it comes to it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And Stewie, in some weird way, was that, in terms of longevity, was that the worst thing that could have happened to Benitez? Because straight out of the gate, he's won, the fifth European Cup. It doesn't get any bigger than that. Everyone's then expecting him to go win that elusive 19th title. And one of the things that's so disappointing about the Benitez era is he only had one title race, and really, I mean, that race wasn't as tight as what maybe some people remember it, because Liverpool had a horrible January and February, and were basically playing catch up for the rest of it. And they were just relying on a United collapse. So, I mean, that obviously is as good as it got for Rafa. How do you look back at that time? A real misfit squad of players who never played again. I mean, that's Smeecher's last game. It's Barris's last game. Pretty much Dudek's last game. How do you look back at that? Is it because a lot of people unfairly maybe say it's a bit of a freak? It's, Liverpool are clearly not the best team in Europe. We like to romanticize it a little bit more. It's like the Mighty Ducks or or the Renford Rejects, whatever you want to put on it. It's certainly in a Bon Jovi music video. We've established that. How do you look back at that? Is it was just a lot of luck at the right time, or do you maybe think that team, that squad, that manager deserves a little bit more credit?
Yeah, absolutely deserve a little bit more credit. The European Cup, look, you can have as much luck as you want, but you've got to be in some way decent enough to win a European Cup. You're not gonna have a ragtag bunch of misfits that are, finished 37 points behind the league. Oh, hang on, we did finish 37 points behind the league leaders, did we? No, they've got it. It's the European Cup. It's not, it's not like an FA Cup where you can kind of, as City have done over the last 3 or 4 years, just come up against Port Vales and your Oldhams in every single round. And then, we had to be, like, people forget how good that Juventus team was as well. You know what I mean? They did Ibrahimovic in that team, and Ibrahimovic was very, very good at that time. He probably wasn't at his peak. You could say maybe another 2 or 3 years before he hit his peak. That Juventus team was a serious team as well.
Yeah.
And for me, like you mentioned about the fact that I don't know if I've ever felt a release like it winning a trophy. We talked about the FA Cup final, but this was just on another level. This is the first like European Cup final Liverpool have been in 20 years. You know what I mean? They were in '85. They lost that. I was too young to remember that anyway. And then, of course, we had the UEFA Cup in 2001, which was incredible. But, you know, you're always still looking enviously at, like, the Uniteds of this world, the Arsenals competing in the Champions League. The Champions League, like, for me, is still the biggest. I know the World Cup is, you know, we're Irish, you know. I don't think we're ever going to win a World Cup. But, you know, the Champions League for me is still the biggest trophy when it comes to football. And to see Liverpool do it, and to do it like that, I've never felt a release like or celebrated as much as I have that. When that Peno saved, you know, that will live with me forever. Absolutely.
I mean, there's a million things still we haven't talked about and I want to talk about, but I don't want this to go 4 hours because no one will listen to it. So we're going to wrap it up soon. I just want to get a very quick anecdote of basically how your night, or in my case, a week went after that. You know, they've won the trophy. Where are you when they're lifting the trophy? Is there any tears of joy? Did you have a great night after it? I mean, I know you had a great night after, but was there any more riots in Liverpool, or was there any more holy water spilled, or did you go grab another deli burger? And I'll start off with you. What can you tell me about the celebrations afterwards?
You know what? It's weird. My own personal craziest celebration came when we won the Champions League last year, because I knew that Liverpool were the best team in Europe, and Origi's goal was like the cherry on the top. That was it. You knew that was it. We'd won it. It just, like, you expected it, and you thought we were going to do it, and that's why it felt more natural. This just didn't sink in. For me, it took a long time to sink in. So, of course, the celebrations were crazy. I mean, it spilled onto the streets of Liverpool, and there was people in the fountain, dancing in the fountains and all the rest. And you're just walking around in the daze. Like, we were just drinking cans, you know, into the early hours in the morning. The big regret I have is that I came back to Birmingham the next day. I couldn't stick around for the homecoming, you know, which I should have, you know, I'd love to have done that. I ran out of money. Like, I couldn't do it. But that's the big regret I had. I think had I stayed for that would have been something else. Like, but yeah, it was so surreal.
John, did you sleep that night?
No. I think I came home at whatever time it was after just a crazy night, and I think for the next month, to make up for not watching it live, I watched the game on the loop. I think for every day for at least a month, I think I watched the recording of that. I could tell you every moment of commentary, every little facet of the game. And every time I still watched it, I was like, Jesus, this actually is happening. I think, Anthony, you've hit the nail on the head there. Like, last season felt like achievement isn't even the correct word. It just felt like we deserved it. It felt right. It was so natural. I think Liverpool were the best team in Europe last year, and they, even though the final wasn't the greatest performance, you see afterwards, it was exactly the way kind of Liverpool were set up to play that game, albeit they didn't want to give the ball away as much, but they were set up to slow it down, to be a little bit more defensive. And then the Origi goal, like, I was lucky enough to be at the game and pretty much behind the goal, and Origi's ball, the way he arrowed it, I knew from the second, it was right behind the angle. It was just, I couldn't have picked a better seat. It was right behind the angle. I could see from the moment where the ball left his foot, he was coming straight for me, and then the scenes in were just, we're just I'm getting even goosebumps thinking about them now. And look at that image there on the streets of Liverpool afterwards. That felt natural. That felt right. This just felt a little bit more, what in the name of God has happened here? Has this actually happened? Let me know. Let me just watch it one more time. Yeah, no, it did happen. Wow. And
Stewie, you were obviously sipping kind of brandy at the bar with your top hat and monocle at the fine establishment that is the Bruin. But what transpired with the rest of your night?
Where did we ended up in a nightclub in Skerries, which is
there we go.
Let's lay the scene out for Jonathan. So Skerries is a town about 8 kilometers away from Balbriggan. So there was
where's the church?
The church.
That's the point of reference.
So yeah, I don't know why, because obviously there was no nightclub open on a Wednesday night in Balbriggan, but there was a nightclub open in Skerries on a Wednesday night. So word had spread round the Bruins that the nightclub in Skerries was open tonight. Maybe the owner was a Liverpool fan or whatever. But we ended up there till the early hours, and I'd say an hour's sleep. I remember I had to go into work the next day because I just started the previous summer. I just started in my first job out of college, and as most people do, they kind of take the piss. I'd missed, I'd say, about 10 Mondays over the course of that year. I kind of played a match on a Sunday, gone out, and I don't even think I rang in sick. I don't know how I wasn't sacked, to be honest.
I think maybe you were. You just kept coming in. They didn't have the heart to tell you.
Yeah, maybe.
Listen, lads. Sorry, Stu. You continue.
Sorry. So I know I had to go into work, but I spent the whole day in work the next day, just on the BBC website, just trying to relive it. Because as you said, Anto, it was. The lads mentioned about last year. Last year was almost like a coronation of, we are the best team in Europe. Whereas you said this one was like winning the lotto. You couldn't believe it. So I spent the whole day just reliving it on the BBC website, and I've never been as excited on the train journey home because I just couldn't wait to get back to watch that parade because they had it live on Sky Sports. Beautiful. And I just watched it all night.
Well, lads, that's brilliant. And like I said, I genuinely do want to talk more about Anados, but we're coming up on a ridiculous running time. It's like Martin Scorsese's The Irishman at this point. So we're going to leave it at that. But before we go, we've got another quiz. It's the now infamous Dreams and Songs to Sing quiz to wrap up this season. Because hopefully in the near future, football will return and we won't be doing these rewind kind of episodes. But until then, we're going to see how much is remembered from the 04-05 season. So the running order this time will be Stewie, you're going to go first. We're going to have Jonathan and Anto, you're going to finish us this time. So if I can trust one of you to get a minute ready on the stopwatch. You have 1 minute and answer as many questions as you can. These are designed to guess. So if you don't know the answer, I recommend taking a wild guess. It's better than wasting up your minute. And obviously whoever gets the most wins. All right, Stewie, do we have a minute on the clock?
Yeah, I'm gonna time the two lads, and then maybe one of them will do me. So I'm ready to go. Well, I can't.
All right.
Let you know.
All right. So Stewie, your time starts now. Who was the top scorer in the league that season?
Gerrard.
Wrong. Barros. How many points did we finish behind Everton?
2.
3. Who did Núñez score his only goal against?
Bolton.
Chelsea in the final. Chelsea, Man United, and who else did the double over Liverpool in the league that year?
Charlton.
Birmingham. Which ex-Ireland player scored a winner in the derby at Goodison? Dear Lord.
Carsley.
Yes. Alonso and Garcia made their debuts in a defeat to who?
Charlton.
Bolton. Who knocked Liverpool out of the FA Cup? Think Jimmy Traore pirouette.
Burnley.
Stefan Onshaw left in January for who?
The Celts.
What colour was Liverpool's away jersey that year?
Yellow.
Correct. How many points did Liverpool get in their group?
10.
Correct. What nationality were the match officials in the final?
Time.
I like it.
They were Spanish.
Ooh.
All right.
They were tough.
You watched the DVD a lot. I would have expected you to know that last one.
They're not going. Who's going into that detail?
It's written on the DVD. The DVD is made.
They're not in the starring Spanish officials on the front cover.
They sponsored the DVD. All right. Can I get a minute on the clock?
Yes, I'm ready to go.
All right, Jonathan. Time starts now. Which popular German defender left in the summer before that season?
Babel.
Correct. Cisse suffered a horrible leg break against who?
Blackburn.
Correct. Neil Mellor scored a last-minute wonder goal against Arsenal, but who scored for Arsenal that day?
Vieira.
Oh, he's good. Liverpool only the league double over 4 teams that season in the league. Can you name 2 of them?
Newcastle.
No.
Jesus. Charlton.
Charlton, and give me one more.
Derby.
Oh, Derby weren't even in the league. Who was managing his first ever game for Spurs on Rafa's first ever game for Liverpool? There's 2 managers making their first kind of debut Premiership.
Jal.
Santini. Who scored for Juve against us in the European Champions League?
Time.
I like it.
1, 2, 3. Oh, Jesus, Stewie's leading the way here. All right.
Oh, no pressure.
You got off to a cracking start there, John, but
it went rapidly downhill then.
It was the league double that stumped you.
It was like Shevchenko's career.
Anto, you need 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, you need to 5 just to level it here. All right, do I have a minute on the clock?
I've got it.
Come on.
Oh, you got it?
No way.
Right.
We're not having you time yourself.
All right, you got it. Okay.
It'll be midnight tonight.
4
Like
minutes.
still not up.
Yeah. One more. Well, how many more do I need?
All right, all right. Time starts now. Who did Liverpool beat over 2 legs in the League Cup semi-final that year?
Oh fuck.
No, not fuck.
Crystal Palace.
Watford. Who scored in both of those games? That's probably not going to help you.
Morientes.
Gerrard. Barra scored his only ever hat-trick for Liverpool against who?
Crystal Palace.
Correct. Which Man United defender scored 2 goals against Liverpool at Old Trafford?
Ferdinand.
Silvestre. Who did Liverpool beat in the Champions League qualifier to get into the Champions League?
Pass.
AK Gratz. Name 2 of the Milan scores in the penalty shootout that night.
John Dahl Thomason.
Correct. And Stewie, start celebrating.
I'll give it to Kaka.
Pirlo.
Oh God, it's Kaka.
Time.
I knew those questions.
Oh dear.
What did I get? 2.
You got 1.
Got 1.
You got 1. All right, lads. That brings us on home. Thanks a million. I can't thank you enough for that. That was our Istanbul memories. Like I said, I'd like to get into it even more, but talking about Istanbul is just open up Pandora's box. You could be here all night. So thanks a million to Stewie again. Really appreciate it, Stewie. Jonathan, thanks a million for your time as well.
My pleasure.
Anto, as usual, you're a star. And I guess we're going to be doing another one of these rewinds very soon. So thanks a million for anyone who's listening. And a lot of people have been listening and sending it on. They've sent it on to other people and got back to me. So thanks a million for everyone who's it. We only got this going a couple of weeks ago. It's brand new. We're just doing it to get ourselves moving in the house and get it, kill a couple of hours. So thanks a million if we're entertaining anybody and anyone who's enjoying it. And anyone who does want to come on it, you know where to contact me. Thanks a million and see you next time.